So when I share about freedom for the human being, I've received a lot of responses, and there's a lot of people who are beginning to understand. They're beginning to understand who they are in Canada and what rights and freedoms are available to them on an individual level. And then there are still others who contact me with a spirit of doubt in them. And they have a lot of doubtful words to express, and sometimes a lot of sarcasm. And I try to let them know it's because of their level of knowledge. That's why they doubt that they can be free and that these rights and freedoms exist for them. Through this all, you have to work out your own freedom. No one's going to do it for you, and the government's not going to come and say to you, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've made errors. We actually cannot yoke you to what we've been trying to yoke you, and we cannot place these burdens upon you according to the Constitution Act. I'm sorry." It's never going to happen. It's up to you to work out your own freedom through your knowledge. Knowledge of what? The knowledge of the Constitution Act as a good start. If you can begin to express your own rights and freedoms using the Constitution Act, you're on a good way to understanding who you are and to being free from the obligations of the juridical personality, that legal person that's in operation here in Canada. So work out your own freedom. It's there and it's available to you. The Constitution Act of Canada, 1982. Part 1. Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Constitution Act of Canada, 1982. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Article 2. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. The Constitution Act of Canada, 1982. Article 52. Primacy of Constitution of Canada. The Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada, and any law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution is, to the extent of its inconsistency, of no force or effect. In the Constitution Act of 1982, in Article 52, it states that this Constitution is the supreme law of Canada, and any law that is inconsistent is of no force or effect. So this Constitution in Canada is the supreme law. It is what you must point to. It is what has superior power here in Canada. If you are searching to express your rights and freedoms, the Constitution Act of Canada is something that you must go to and use in order to have your human rights and freedoms expressed. It is the highest law of the land, and if you are able to show that the subsequent acts, regulations, and statutes are breaking this Constitution, then all these regulations, legislative rules, and statutes will have no force or effect upon you. In the Constitution Act, which is the supreme law of Canada, in the first part, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it says that everyone has the freedom of association. Everyone. So you can choose who you want to associate with or not. I'm gathering that would also include Canada, the government of Canada. Now, everyone also has the freedom of thought, belief, and opinion. That's your rights. Those are your freedoms, and they're guaranteed to you. Now, everyone also has the freedom of conscience. The freedom of conscience. Black laws, conscience, the moral sense, the faculty of judging the moral qualities of actions, or of discriminating between right and wrong, particularly applied to one's perception of judgment of the moral qualities of his own conduct. But in a wider sense, I'm just going to scroll down, noting a similar application of the standards of morality to the acts of others. In law, especially the moral rule, which requires probity, justice, and honest dealing between man and man. As when we say that a bargain is against conscience or unconscionable. Conscience, Black Laws, 7th edition. The moral sense of right or wrong, especially a moral sense applied to one's own judgment and actions. In law, the moral rule that requires justice and honest dealings between people. One of the freedoms that everyone has here in Canada is the freedom of conscience. Freedom of conscience. Now that's a freedom that you have to perceive or to make a choice about what is right and wrong. About what you're going to accept in your conscience, what you're going to accept to lead you or guide you. That's your freedom here in Canada. Now when you apply it in a law aspect, it's justice and honest dealings between man and man. So when you are being forced to be considered a legal person, when you are being forced to take on a role and play a role here in Canada as that legal person, you do not have freedom of conscience. You do not have freedom of conscience because first, they're yoking you to an act or a statute, and that act and statute has regulations and articles that have been given force of law. And they are saying that you must take understanding and take perception of these acts and regulations in your consciousness. You are under obligation to know what this law says and follow what this law says, this act or regulation. By doing such, that removes your freedom of conscience. Because now they're trying to place an obligation for you to know what these statutes and regulations say and have you to abide by them. So they're removing your freedom of conscience. You're supposed to be able to decide what goes on in your mind. You're supposed to have freedom to determine what it is that you're going to allow your conscience to think about or dwell upon. Now here I'll give you an example of the fact that the freedom of the conscience has been removed. When you receive a tax bill, for example, if you have income tax to pay, and that bill is way over an amount that you could ever pay, when they send you that bill, you'll start to have problems in your mind. You'll get stressed out. You'll start thinking, how can I regulate this bill? How can I fix this problem? How can I change what's going on right now? It takes away the freedom of your conscience, and it makes you focus upon that problem that has been given to you. A gift, a beautiful gift to your legal person. However, it's impacting you. There's many operations of law in Canada that actually take away your freedom of your conscience, and you don't really realize what's going on. It's happening on a commercial level. Most of these commercial instruments do just that. It removes your freedom of conscience because it creates a burden upon you. Rather than being able to discharge your debt like you're supposed to be able to, because every need for you is supposed to be met as the human being, they force you to go and operate in a commercial system to try and fulfill these needs. And just by doing that, they've stolen your freedom of conscience, because you're supposed to decide where will you put your energy, where will you invest your time, and not be forced or yoked to help build a system for the monarchy. You have to learn who you are in order to free your own conscience. Because right now here in Canada, you are not considered equal. You are considered a legal person who is in servitude to a government on a commercial capacity. That's not a way to live. And in living like that, you have been stripped of your human rights and freedoms, the guarantees that you are given because you are a man or a woman, apart from this commercial system. So you have to learn again who you are, and you have to free your conscience from all the demands and all the burdens that this system is placing upon you. And as you begin to do that, you begin to express freedom. Things that used to trouble you or scare you or bring tribulation into your life, when you begin to exercise your rights and freedoms as the human being, will not trouble you or bother you anymore, because you begin to free your conscience again from those burdens. This is a necessary step in all of our self-developments. Otherwise, we don't really grow, because we stay in submission, in fear, in intimidation to a system that is around us. The applications of law, in order for you to express your freedom, are there. It only takes for you to understand it and to act upon it. It's very easy to doubt and have unbelief. It's even easier to act upon it and use your rights and freedoms, because it's very expressive in law for us. And when we're able to point to it and produce the operations of law before those who are trying to claim authority over us, it produces that key in order to let the handcuffs go for us, so to speak, in our conscience and in our daily lives. We know that everyone has the freedom of conscience. And we know that everyone has the freedom of association. Inside the Constitution Act of Canada of 1982. However, inside that act, also in Article 26, it says that there are rights and freedoms outside of this charter of the Constitution Act that are available for everyone to use. And those rights and freedoms can be found in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. These are the expression of the human rights, of the freedom for men, outside of a commercial system. Since the Constitution Act says that it is the supreme law of Canada, and it is above and superior to all other laws in Canada, and since in this act we see that in Article 26 that we can obtain other rights and freedoms that are not given to us here through this charter, then we need to work on that, and we need to go and use these other covenants in order to secure and fulfill our rights and freedoms.